Welcome to the Introduction to Programming series. My name is James, and today I'm going to be introducing input and output using the programming language Go. We are going to talk about how to get output, get input from a user, have a user have someone who's touching our program, a player, a customer, a client, a family member, someone who's using our program that we'll refer to as a user, to get their input so we can do stuff with it. We're also going to learn how to output things to the screen. And we're actually going to start with the output. But before we begin, I want to remind you to create a Hello World project and code along with me. I will be flipping between slides and code today. So I'll take that hint to get myself set up as well. But feel free to pause and get yourself set up so you're ready to go. I've already got my VS Code open to my Introduction to Programming folder. In here, I want to create a folder based on what I'm going to do today. I'm going to call it input output. And if you've had a class with me, you'll know that I get really bored. So the other thing I'm going to do is come up with a theme randomly. These are some themes that I came up with. I really could use your help. So if you've got an idea for a theme I can add to this list, please leave a comment and I'll toss in the list for the next video I create. But and I'll tag you in that comment when I make a video with your theme. But for now, here's what I got on my list. So let's go ahead and give it a spin and see what comes up. What's the theme for today's programming? Tacos. Tacos it is. Awesome. This is great because I'm a little hungry right now, so I know what I'm going to be getting for lunch. So I'm going to make a new file for that Hello World project we're working on right here, right? My main.go. I never forget that I do a package main. I never forget that I do an import fmt func. Oops, forgot a part. Main, and then fmt.println, and I save it. And I am saving it by either clicking File and then Save, or I'm actually using on my machine, it's a Control S. So I'm doing Control S to save it as I go. It's important that you finish all of this before you hit save, or else it'll reorganize some things for you. But hello, what was the theme again? Tacos. Um, Welcome to Aka Taco, who is not affiliated with me, though I'd love their tacos and burritos. So welcome to Aka Taco. I've got that started. Now let's make sure it runs. Oh, but I forgot a step. After I create my folder, I've created my main.go. I need to then open my input output folder, and then I can work from there. And it's nice too because it's now clean, it's focused. I only get to see that. Now, if I ever forgot something and I wanted to use notes, I could do file and I can open file and I can go back and see what I wrote for my Hello World's main.go, and you'll see here it tells me my Hello World's main has this stuff in it in case I had some good content, some notes I want to use. But for now, I don't. I just like my taco main, so I'll stick with this guy. Then the next step I need is a terminal. Go run main.go. Welcome to Akataco. Okay, so that's set up. That works. Now I can focus on our lecture here. Create a Hello World project. Okay, we're ready. Here we go. Starting with output. Why? I always ask myself this question when we're learning new topics, new material, is why is it important that I learn this material? Well, with output in code, in programs, we are attempting to communicate with our users. We're attempting to tell them something or give them some information somehow and then receive, and then we can do what we want with that. Sometimes it's just instructing them to do stuff. Sometimes it's welcoming them. We'll see. But I do want to pick your brain a little bit. Pause if you want some more time, but think about some ways that software communicates with users today. Just think about software. What does that even mean? And how does it talk to us today? Yeah, I mean, I've heard, so like we've got what, smartphones, right? Smartphones are lovely little examples of programming and software. The software on the phone has a screen, has access to a screen, so it can show you visual notifications. It can show you pictures. It can show you all that stuff. It has a speaker, right? So it can play sound. Those visuals on the screen can either be images, they could be text, right? In fact, there can even be that little vibe, right? When you get like text messages in your pocket, you get a little vibrate thing. So it has a lot of different ways to communicate with users today. We're learning programming to start. As programmers, we do get access to all of those cool tools, screens, vibe, text, all this stuff. But for this language, for much of this series, we're going to look at just text. And that looks like what you just saw actually in our Hello World. This guy, this FMT print line, hello user. Let's take a look at this. FMT print ln, welcome to Akatako. Perhaps I want to say more than that. Perhaps I want to ask the user, what would you like to order? Let's get that mouse out of the way. And maybe I want to give them options. Let's say something like, do you want well, maybe I'll just make a list. Let's make a list. That might be easier. Let's say, what if they tell me one? Well, let's tell me, says, what if they say I want a taco? Maybe they want a burrito. Maybe they want, what else do you get at a Mexican restaurant? Those are the good ones. You like nachos, maybe just chips. Let's let them tell us what do they want. Taco, burrito, nachos, chips. And maybe I'll do this so it like shows like its options. So just putting a dash and a space in front of them. So like as if this is the menu. And let's run this and see what happens. Go run main.go. Yeah, that looks pretty good, right? It's got welcome to Akataco. What would you like to order? Taco, burrito, nachos, and chips. Okay, so I can do um, prints, FMT print lines all I want. And you'll notice that every time I do one of them, it does a single line. And then I do the next one and it does a single line. And each one of these is their own line. If I wanted burrito and taco on the same line, I could just put them in the same statement, the same instruction, and they'll show up together. But I don't. I do want them separate. I do want them as different options so it's not confusing. And so I can do all these all I want. Um, maybe we can key in some variables. Maybe we can say, hey, uh, here's here's some stuff that we want to store and that can change later, right? Things that can vary. So let's say maybe I want to build a program that is like a generic Mexican restaurant place. So maybe I want like a variable, which is the restaurant. How do you spell restaurant name? That feels wrong. Well, this isn't an English class, so not super important as long as you are, I feel like the U's on the wrong side. As long as you're consistent, it doesn't matter what your spelling is like. That's one thing cool about this. We talked about programming requiring a lot of syntax like English and a lot of math, and really you need to know a little bit about both, but as long as you're consistent, things will work out for you. So restaurant name string, I'm going to define this, right, as Aka Taco. And then I can say, welcome to, check this out, restaurant name, right? I can use literal string values. Again, this is a string value. You can tell because it's got double quotes. I can make a string variable, which I can place a value. I can place a value inside of that variable, and that'll work. And then I can actually print out the variable itself because variables are just storage for user for anything, for any kind of values we want. So if I compare this, let's take a look. Let's go run main.go. Welcome to Akatako. What would you like to order? And what's cool is I can, well, actually, I don't like that, right? I mean, welcome to Akatako. That's two different lines. So maybe I want to combine these. Now we know one way to combine these was to put them in the same line, but if I do this, there's going to be a problem. There's a problem because when we're using these print lines, we have to separate out the different types of things. So this is a string value. You can tell by the double quotes. And this is a variable. And so they have to be separated somehow. They have to be in different print lines, or you can put them in the same print line, but you have to separate them by commas. This is just to let the computer know, hey, you're done with the string value. Now here's something else to work on. Oh, this one's a variable for a string. Cool. And then if I wanted to add something else here, um, uh, I don't know. An exclamation point, I guess, could go here, right? Then I can add these things together. Welcome to Akatako. Perfect. Now, what would you like to order? And I do see that space there, but I'll leave that for later. It's a little pesky. What would you like to order? Taco, burrito, nachos, and chips. Okay. And in case if it's not Akatako, what if I went to man, what's that place? Um, I believe it's called. There's like it's like El Taquito. It's a nice taco truck. And then take a look. Welcome to El Taquito. So now I've got access to whatever I want to change the restaurant name to, the same welcome message will always work, which is really cool. So I can print out variables, I can print out um, values, literal string values, and I can do all that with these print lines. There's another one, which is with these when we're, well, there's another type stuff we can do with these prints. We can print using these little special characters. So we have \n, which is important, and \t. These are things when we're like messing with formatting and we want things to look pretty. So for example, maybe I want this taco to not be up against the line because it doesn't have enough and it looks too cluttered. So I can put this guy in here, right? And a \t is a tab. It's just like you on your keyboard on that far left over by the caps lock, the tab, which inserts either a tab or a couple number of spaces to be the width of a some width, some 4 to 8 width. And if I run this, I can see that that \t in both of these places tabbed it out. And now the menu's looking kind of nice. It's looking a little bit separated from the side. It's not too crowded over here. So I am going to go ahead and add these \t's in each place. The other thing I can do is I can use \n. And these are these are leaning left, right? They're leaning to the beginning of the sentence. They are backslashes. Um, um, so these backslashes, I can use something called a, let's see, let's do a \n right here. So in the middle of these prints, in these string literals and these literal values, I can put \n's in. And what is that going to do? Let's take a look. That is going to add a line, right? It's going to press enter, basically. It's going to jump to the next line. So welcome to new line. New line is what this is called. This \n is called a new line because it creates a new line. It says, hey, this line is over. Start again on the next line. And so when the restaurant name comes, which is El Taquito, it starts on the next line and prints from there. So I can use these \n's all I want. I can even, I've seen some people do stuff like this, which is kind of crazy. I can combine two lines, put them together, and it still works. Right? This is crazy. Some people like the less text or less characters, but I find this personally a lot harder to read than actually just making it look like how it shows up on the output. But you can always have access to these new lines, and there are times when it makes sense to use a bunch of these. Um, yeah, so there's that. There's also one more type of output I want to bring up because I find that this ends up helping quite a bit. There's something called printf. Printf uses these weird characters that lets us do something more interesting with the formatting. So let's take a look. I want to look at right now, and let's get rid of this \n. I want to look at the problem we talked about, which is that there's a space right after this exclamation point. I don't like that. I want this to be nice and clean, but I still want a variable name. And I'm noticing that println is adding, because I don't have it here, right? Is println is actually adding a space. Even if I do this, this doesn't change it. It's only these quotes, but it's adding a space around my variable, and I do not like that. So instead of this println, I can use an FMT. I'm going to, again, comment. I'm going to turn this off by putting 2 forward slashes. FMT printf. Just leave it for my notes. And then the first thing that happens with the printf, and this is a formatted print, versus we had print line, which is to print one line of text. This is formatted print. So this is something special. So what this does is this lets me say my message. I'm gonna leave a little space there and put an exclamation point. Lets me say my message, but leave a spot like a marker for me to say where I want my variable to go. So I want my restaurant name to go right here. And I've got to put a little code. Because this is a string, I've got to put a %s, and I'll tell you about what this is later. But because this is a string, I have to put a %s, and then I just give it the variables for all of the little markers I've left behind. So I say, welcome to restaurant name, %s, and in this case, I'm going to put a \n here, and you'll see why. So that's pretty tricky. That's a pretty tricky line. That's a lot of stuff going on. But take a look what happened. Welcome to, space, El Taquito, space, marker, right? And then exclamation point. And there's no space around the S. It just does the actual exclamation point. And then I put this new line in, which does what again? Yeah, it jumps down to the next line. If I don't put this in here, look what happens. This is a side effect. This is an issue with printf. It doesn't make a new line start on the, it doesn't make the next line start on a new line. So the printf is actually not doing anything to press enter after it's done. So I'm saying, hey, when you're done typing this out, when you're displaying this to a user, press enter and then go into these print lines, which then maybe if we put two and two together, we can say that, hey, these print lines, what they're actually doing is they're printing out whatever you give it, and then they are typing \n. They're pressing enter at the end. So that's all they're doing. It's just if I use something like a printf, I have to do this on my own. But just like that, I can place variables into a string, provided string with printf. With printf, you only get to have one of these, right? When we had the print line, we had string, comma, variable, comma, string, and I can have comma, whatever, over and over as many times as I want. When I'm using printf, I can only have one string in the beginning with this, specialty characters. And then I'd have to, and then I have to add variables after that. But I can't do a bunch of these format strings in one. It's all got to be condensed in the beginning. So yeah, that's fine. Where are we at? Okay. So that is output, and that is printf. You can do that with integers, which we use a different formatting string. I'll have a slide at the end here to show you the secrets, which is which, but you can do these with any type of variable you want. Anyway, now let's make it more interesting. Input, right? Why do we want to have input? Well, input allows users to talk to us, right? Right now, we're talking to a user. We're welcoming them to our restaurant. We're doing some variable stuff with the name of the restaurant, but really, we're just displaying messages to a user. It gets more interesting when our users can communicate with us. But going back to this why, what are some ways that users communicate with software today? Think about some of the examples I gave before. Yeah, I mean, just looking at that smartphone example again, what are some ways we communicate? Well, we use the touch screen itself, right? Touching is a way that we can communicate with software. We use the keyboard on the phone to communicate through apps, right? So keyboard input is another piece of it. We've got video. You could see me, right? This is I'm communicating in a way. I'm communicating to a piece of software here, especially if I've got something that is checking my hands or blurring out my background. My microphone, that's another way that we talk with software today. So voice. As I mentioned, as programmers, we get access to all of these different tools for input, and we can mix and match a lot of these things as we build cooler and cooler applications. For this introduction series, we're going to focus on just the keyboard. But again, as you learn more and more, you can add on libraries that let you speak with a user or hear from a user. It's pretty cool stuff. So just for us though, looking at how do we get input from a user? All right. So we have to use something called scanf. So we got our print line, we got scanf, and you'll notice that it's kind of like a printf, but it's something different. So what I'm going to do is I want to get the user's order. So for me to get the user's order, I want to store some value the user gives to me, and I want to display that value back to them to confirm their order, right? I need to remember something they tell me, and then I can go and refer to it later or use it for a bill. So to do that, I'm going to make something, a variable. Maybe I'm going to call it user order. That seems fine. And I'm expecting them to type out taco, burrito, nachos, or chips. So if this is a word, I can ask myself what data type fits. And If you've guessed right, it is a string, right? A string which has a letter, a word, or a sentence. I just want a word, so I'm gonna get a string. All right. The next thing I want to do is I want to get the user's input and place it in this string. That's what I can do. I kind of have to hot potato things around. I want to take their input and put it in the string, and then I can use their input that's stored in that string later. So to do that, I do this wild guy, fmt scanf. Now scanf, just like printf, can only take one string in the beginning, and what it mostly contains are these specialty codes, these markers. Say in the string you give me, I'm looking for a word, and with that word, I want this to go into my variable user order. Now, this one is one of the more thorny things that we have in early programming. Scanf, you got to put these quotes and this percent sign for the specific type you want to see. And again, percent S is string. And then we also get this ampersand. This ampersand is above the number 7 on your keyboard. This allows us to actually change the value of user order. I'll talk a lot more about what this is actually doing under the hood in later videos, but for now, our scans, all of our scan, anytime we scan, we're going to have to use this ampersand in front of our variable. It's weird, I know, but that's okay. We'll get through it. And then lastly, this one's another little piece that is super irritating. Generally, if you're on a Windows machine, a Windows computer, you're going to want to put a \n after your scanf. It's a little complicated. I haven't noticed it to affect Macintosh laptops. If you do have this or Mac desktops, I haven't noticed this affecting Linux, but Windows needs this. So we just put this on here generally when I'm using scans. And if you ask why do we care? Why do we do this? It's we don't actually end up using scans like this in much more professional programs. Scans just give us a little bit of an easy tool to use, easier tool to use, even though we've got to handle these little edge cases, these little side effects. But as we progress in our skills, we'll stop using scan and scanf. For now, though, we're going to use scanf for a couple of these videos. I'm going to use my formatting code, my percent %s for my string because I want a string variable. And then I put my comma ampersand variable. And what this is going to do is this is going to ask the user for input, and you'll see how it waits. Now watch. So notice how the program ran. It said El Taquito, welcome to El Taquito. It said, what would you like to order? What would you like to order? It did the taco, the burrito, the nachos, and the chips, right? And now it's waiting. It's not blinking. It's just waiting for me to enter something. And I'm going to say I want nachos. So I can just type this. I can delete it, nachos, whatever. And when I press enter, then the program ends. And so what's happening is it's going through line by line. It gets to the scan. It's like, oh, scan needs, I want something from the user. So it waits until it gets something from the user. After it's done, this line completes and it goes to the end of the program, which is line 15 right now. Now that's not super interesting because I don't do anything with that. Maybe I should confirm what they said because sometimes, restaurants are loud, sometimes they're on the phone. So maybe I'll say FMT, I'll do printf this time, and I'll say thank you for your order. You you said, and then I'm gonna put my little token in here, right? My little marker, percent %s, because I want the string. And I know I'm doing a printf, so I want it at the end. I want this \n at the end. Normally I'm doing this with the printfs, but you can remove it obviously if you want the next thing to be on the same line. And then what do I want in this percent %s location? Well, I want the variable they gave me, which was user order. And this variable was a box I made that they filled with what they typed, and now I can use it in sentences. I can use this in anything I want to do. I can manipulate it. So let's take a look. Welcome to El Taquito. What would you like to order? This time I want chips. Thank you for your order. You said chips. And just like that, I can talk to a user, I can tell them my menu, they can tell me what they want to order, and we've got some back and forth communication. I can take what they say and change it. Um, as you can see, here's another example in the slides. With integers, we have this %d, which allows us to go to whole numbers. And I'll leave this on here for a second, but if you Google go fmt scanf, you'll end up on a page like this. I'll link this in the description as well, I guess. And this screen, this printing, HDR printing, has all of these different percent symbols for different things. And what I usually find is that if you zoom in, there's some default stuff here. Um, for let's see, let's pull out the pieces we want. So T, percent T is good for Booleans. Integers, which are base 10 if you're counting from 0, 1, 2 to 9. This is our normal stuff, so D. If you're having binary, then you want percent %B, but we're using numbers, normal numbers, so percent %D. If we're using floats and we want to have access to that decimal point stuff, we're using percent %F for float. That makes sense. S for strings. That makes sense. And that's all four, right? S for string, F for float, D for integer, and T for Boolean. And in case it helps, I've pulled those out over here. These are commonly the ones you use for these data types individually. Um, yeah. So I will link this in the description. And yeah, that shows a good example of input and output. We can change things like, I'll do really quick switch here. I'm going to say option one, and I'm just deleting this little dash and replacing it with a number I want, right? This is the same code. The difference is I'm just going to see what it looks like as I want them to have a number menu, like you'll see at like fast food restaurants, sometimes regular restaurants. And then instead of getting their word, I want them to give me a number. So I can change the user order to a user order num. I can call it an integer. I'm going to need to make all these guys user order nums. And let's see what changes. Since I'm scanning a number, I don't want to use percent %S. I want to use an integer. So what does it scan for an integer? It's a percent %D. So I can do that. And the same thing for if they want user order num. If I want to output it with a printf, I need to use percent %D here as well. And just like this, I can say I want a burrito this time. You said 2. Yeah. So I can use whichever of these percents with whatever ones of these that I want. And that's it. Let me know if you have any questions, suggestions, or other feedback in the comments. As a reminder, the spinner, I'm gonna have to remove tacos and put something else in. So I really appreciate any ideas you guys supply. So please place those in the comments and I'll add them to my next videos. But otherwise, I don't know. Thanks for watching.